We have been talking about forgiveness for the past several Sundays. And someone knew that, and they sent me a list, check this out, of 48 things that they have deemed unforgivable. They're so egregious, they can't be forgiven. And I'm not gonna read all 48, just 43. No, I've culled them down to 7. Are you ready? First unforgivable thing, putting the toilet paper roll on under instead of over. Unforgivable. Wearing socks with sandals. Unforgivable. Saying the book was better 5 minutes into the movie. Putting an empty milk carton back in the fridge. You know who you are. Unforgivable. Double dipping a chip in a shared bowl of salsa. Replying K to a long, heartfelt text message. Unforgivable. And finally, tagging someone in a photo where they look terrible, but you look great. Unforgivable. When I was a kid growing up in public schools, sometimes my mom would buy me a brand new gleaming white pair of sneakers, maybe some PF Flyers or Keds. Some of you people know what I'm talking about. Others, you're like going, what is he talking about? And I would get these brand new white sneakers, and I would lace them up in the morning. I would race off to school. And somewhere during the day, someone in the halls or in class, sometimes I didn't know them, sometimes I did know them. They were my friends. They would go, oh, you got new tennis shoes, huh? And they would step on them and say, tracks. That's how we did it. So at 3 o'clock when the bell would ring, I would get on the bus, I would look down at my brand new gleaming white sneakers, and they had people's footprints and tracks all over them. That's how it was. That's how we rolled. And here's the deal. I'm not mad about that. That's not unforgivable. But what that did, that experience, is it kind of prepared me for real life. Because in real life, people are going to step on you. They're going to abandon you. They're going to reject you. They're going to embarrass you. They're going to betray you. They're going to abuse you. They're not just going to step on your feet. They're going to step on your soul. And it hurts. It's painful. And everything in us cries out for justice. And then we come into church and we hear those words spoken from Christ himself. He says, you must forgive them. And that feels impossible. Something inside of us says, no, I can't do that. I can't. Colossians 3:13 makes it clear, doesn't it? It says, bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. There's a symbiotic relationship between receiving forgiveness and extending forgiveness. They're connected. The great writer C.S. Lewis said this. He said, everyone says forgiveness is a lovely idea until they have something to forgive. So if you brought your ever so creative prayer wheel with you here today, you can write in one of those slots simply that one word, forgive. Jesus, in that classic prayer that he gave us, says this in Matthew chapter 6, verse 12. He says, and God, forgive us our trespasses. Lord, forgive us when we mess up. Forgive us when we trespass, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And then he goes, in case you missed that forgiveness piece, verse 14, for if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others for their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins. Wow. The Creator God, the God who made us, who made this world, who made the relational world we live in, calls you and calls me to do the tough work of forgiveness, of forgiving others. And as we launch into forgiving others, extending forgiveness for people who have stepped on us time and time again, we have to go into this with the mindset, with the presupposition that forgiveness brings freedom. Forgiveness brings freedom. It releases us from being controlled by a wrong that can never be undone. But it seems such a tall order. It seems impossible because we want to punish them. We just do. Perhaps you heard the story about this guy was out in the woods wandering around and he bumped into this lamp. It looked like a genie lamp, so he did what any of us would do, and he rubbed the lamp and poof, out pops the genie. The genie says, hello, I will grant you one wish. And the man's like, hot dog, man, this is my lucky day. Then the genie says, but wait, I want you to know that whatever wish I grant to you, I will give your mortal enemy double. So if you ask for a Rolls Royce, I will give your enemy two. If you ask for $1 billion, I'll give your enemy $2 billion. If you ask for a house in the Hamptons, I'll give your enemy 2 houses in the Hamptons. Are we clear? And the man said, yes. And the genie said, well then, what is your wish? And the man said, I wish that you would beat me half to death. We want them to suffer. We want them to feel the pain, the embarrassment, the humiliation, the rejection, the shame that we felt. So we recoil when we first really take these words of extending forgiveness to heart. But unforgiveness is dangerous. We want to punish them, but unforgiveness punishes you. Frederick Buechner talks about unforgiveness like a bag. And everywhere you go in life, if there's an offense, it's like picking up a rock and putting it in that bag. And in justice, you pick up that rock and put it in that bag. A harsh word of rejection, resentment, you put it in the bag, put it in the bag, and you carry that bag around you with you, he said, until that bag is so heavy, it weights you down. Until that bag is so heavy that the unforgiveness crushes you and you suffocate. Someone else has said, that unforgiveness poisons you. They say that holding on for unforgiveness is like drinking a bottle of poison and expecting the other person to die. The poison gets inside of our bodies. It's unforgiveness and bitterness is bad for your physiology. It affects your heart rate. It affects your blood pressure. It makes you more susceptible to disease and illness when you hold on to unforgiveness. And it festers into bitterness and to resentments. In the recovery world, they say that the number one cause of relapse, the number one trigger for people going back is resentment / unforgiveness. It poisons you, punishes you. And it prevents you from moving forward with your life because it keeps you chained to the past. That financial deal when you were ripped off, that betrayal, that divorce, that abuse, that lying, it keeps you chained to your past. And that event or that person still controls you. They're not only in your past, they're also in your present as well. And evil wins, not once, but twice. When we clench our fists, when we hold on to unforgiveness. Ask you a couple of questions. I'm gonna ask for a show of hands here. How many of you have been forgiven by God, say 50 times? You've been forgiven at least 50 times. Okay, all right. How about 150? How many of you have it? Wow. 300, anybody? 3. By the way, do you guest here today? I'm sorry, you're surrounded by a lot of sinners, okay? My hand's up too. How about 1,000? Anybody of you here raise your, yeah, 1,000? Yeah, me too. It's a lot. Second question. How many people have you forgiven who hurt you? How many times? I want to ask for a show of hands. 20? 50? The gap between our ability to receive forgiveness and extend forgiveness is the measure of how deeply the gospel has penetrated our lives. The gap reveals whether the gospel has merely touched our lips or has transformed our hearts. As we grow, as we walk through this life, as we're stepped upon, God calls us, God desires that we begin to learn how to extend the forgiveness that He's given us, to extend it to others. Now, parenthetically, forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. It takes two parties, two people to be reconciled. You may or may not be reconciled. Forgiveness is not winking at injustice. You have to name and call out what happened to you and the injustice you experienced. Forgiveness is not saying you don't have a right to be angry and upset. No. That's all a part of it. but we have to forgive. God's set it up that way. Though it's counterintuitive, it doesn't make sense, though it seems like it's impossible, in order to be free, really free, we've got to learn how to extend forgiveness. I don't know, several months ago, I was awakened at 3 a.m. Went downstairs, couldn't go back to sleep, and I just had this one word ringing in my mind. And that word was forgive. Forgive. I was thinking about a scenario, a situation, and the word came forgive. So immediately the next day I got up and I began forgiving. No, I didn't. Called up a pastor friend of mine in a different city. I said, hey, bro, here's the situation, blah, 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 blah. And this guy goes, yeah, I think you got to forgive. I'm like, man. So, two signs you think, preacher, right? He's going to go out and do it. No, I need a third one. I go to my counselor. Counselors are supposed to be nice and concerned about your feelings and all that. Counselor said, oh man, you got some forgiveness on your hands. You're going to have to forgive. So after the third time, I began the process. And here's the way I look at it. How many of you here follow college sports, college football, college basketball? Raise your hand. This is not a forgiving question. Yeah, okay, a lot of us do. And, I love it. I love college sports. Love it, love it, love it. But man, we are living in some wacky times, right? Every player is a mercenary, and now every coach is a mercenary too. There's some mercenaries. So we're all familiar, a lot of us here, with the term the portal, right? They've entered the portal, okay? Oh man, the portal. So as I got that third word, it took 3 signs for me to wake up and go, wow, perhaps I need to forgive. I looked at it like a portal. So I said, okay, I am going to enter the forgiveness portal. Enter the forgiveness portal. A gateway, a portal, an opportunity for change and transformation. Do you remember the story? Maybe you haven't heard it, but in John chapter 5, there's this kind of weird, strange story about this pool called the Pool of Bethesda. And this pool, rumor had it, mythology had it, the angels would come down whenever, and they would stir up the waters of the pool. And if you were hurt or sick or possessed, if you jumped in the water first, you'd get healed. That's kind of wild, isn't it? Some kind of, magical hot tub, I guess. I'm picturing it with modern day lenses. So the story in John 5 talks about this man who had been at that portal, if you would, for 38 years. Never got in first. Jesus shows up at the portal one day and asks the guy a pretty tough question. He's like, hey man, do you want to be healed? Do I want to be healed? A lot of us are like that old guy. We kind of hang out around the portal. We get around it. We know we need to forgive, but man, we don't want to do the tough work of getting and jumping in the portal and processing all that we'll need to so that we can extend forgiveness. Because when you enter the portal, you're going to find some things. You're going to find pain there, for sure. You're going to find anger there, no doubt. You're going to find injustice there. That's normal. But tell you what else you also find. You'll find healing there. You'll find peace there. You'll find resolve there. And you'll find freedom there. And you will experience it once again, that forgiveness truly brings freedom. It brings freedom. Charles Spurgeon, the big old bearded, cigar-smoking British preacher, put it this way. He said that we must go to the cross to be forgiven, and then we have to linger there to learn how to forgive. Linger there to learn how to forgive. Peter talked about it in his first letter, chapter 2, 23, talking about Christ on the cross. He said, when they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly. But they don't deserve it. I know. Neither did the Pharisees. Neither did the Roman soldiers. Neither did the gawkers at the cross as they stared up to the Son of the living God suffering and dying on the cross. Neither did they deserve it. Neither do you deserve it. And yet he said, forgive them. Forgive them. We can't forgive others if we don't believe that we've been forgiven. We've got to enter the forgiveness portal as God calls us and in God's timing. In God's timing. Hopefully you won't need 3 different knocks on the head like I did to enter into the portal. But we should approach forgiveness. Approach forgiving others as forgiven people. And pray this prayer in Psalm 139 where David said, search me, God, know my heart, test me, know my anxious thoughts, and see if there is any offensive way in me. What am I holding on to? What's chaining me to my past? And Lord, lead me in the everlasting way. Though this message today is tough, it's hard, it's complex, God, as our Father, always has our best interest in mind, every time, every time. So we have to enter into that portal. We have to say no to the poison we're drinking of bitterness and unforgiveness. We have to say no to punishing ourselves and being chained to the past and say yes, yes, God, I want to enter that portal of forgiveness. I want to put away the revenge. I want to put away the retaliation. And I want to turn that situation, that person over to you and your hands. You are the only judge. You are the only God. I turn them over to you. I want to know your freedom once again. And the good book says, the book that's better than the movie says, the person who the Son has set free, that person is free indeed. God's calling a lot of us to enter that mysterious healing portal of forgiveness.